Good afternoon. So, we're on chapter 15, The Great Plan. And if you're reading this version, it's on page 107. Okay? I'm out in the garden, so you'll have to excuse the birds singing and the dogs barking every now and again. Although they do seem to be quite comfortable and relaxed at the moment. So, The Great Plan. We've absolutely got to stop them, Sophie cried. Put me back in your pocket quick and we'll chase after them and warn everyone in England they're coming. Oh, redunculous and impossible, the BFG said. They's going 2 times as fast as me and they's finishing their guzzle before we is halfway. But we can't just sit here doing nothing, Sophie cried. How many girls and boys are they going to eat tonight? Oh, many, the BFG said. Oh, the fleshed lump-eating giant alone has a most squackling whoopsie appetite. Will he snatch them out of their beds while they're sleeping? Like peas out of a poddle, the BFG said. I can't bear to think of it, Sophie cried. Well, then don't, the BFG said. For years and years I is sitting there on this very rock every night after night when they is galloping away, and I is feeling so sad for all the human beings they is going to gobble up. But I has had to get used to it. There's nothing I can do. If I wasn't a titchy little runty giant, only 24 feet high, then I'd be stopping them. But that is absolutely out of the window. Do you always know where they're going? Sophie asked. Always, the BFG said. Every night they is yelling at me as they go bootling past. The other day they was yelling, we is off to Mississippi and Missouri to guzzle 'em both. Oh, disgusting, Sophie said. I hate them. She and the big friendly giant sat quietly side by side on the blue rock in the gathering dusk. Sophie had never felt so helpless in her life. After a while she stood up and cried out. I can't stand it. Just think of those poor girls and boys who are going to be eaten alive in a few hours' time. We can't just sit here and do nothing. We've got to go after those brutes. No, BFG said. We must, Sophie cried. Why won't you go? The BFG sighed and shook his head firmly. I has told you 5 or 6 times, and the third'll be the last. I is never showing myself to human beings. Why ever not? If I do, they'll be putting me in the zoo with all the jiggy raffs and catty piddlers. Nonsense, Sophie said. And they'll be sending you straight back to an orphanage, the BFG went on. Grown-up human beings is not famous for their kindness. They is all squiffle rotters and grink sludgers. Well, that simply isn't true, Sophie cried angrily. Some of them are very kind indeed. Who? The BFG said. Name one. The Queen of England, Sophie said. You can't call her a squiffle rotter or a grink sludger. Well, the BFG said. You can't call her a squeak pip or a knot muncher either, Sophie said, getting angrier and angrier. That flesh lump eater is longing dearly to guzzle her up, the BFG said, smiling a little now. Who? The Queen? Sophie cried aghast. Yes, the BFG answered. Flesh lump eater says he has never eaten a queen, and he thinks perhaps she has an especially scrumdiddlyumptious flavour. How dare he? Sophie cried. But Flesh lump eater says there's too many soldiers around her palace, and he doesn't dare try it. He'd better not, Sophie said. He's also saying he would very much like to guzzle one of the soldiers in his pretty red suit, but he's worried about those big black furry hats that he's wearing. He thinks they might be sticking in his throat. Well, I hope he chokes, Sophie said. Ah, Flesh lump eater is a very careful giant, the BFG said. Sophie was silent for a few moments, and then suddenly, in a voice filled with excitement, she cried out. I've got it! By golly, I think I've got it! You've got what? Asked the BFG. The answer, cried Sophie. We'll go to the Queen. It's a terrific idea. If I went and told the Queen about those disgusting man-eating giants, I'm sure she'd do something about it. The BFG looked down at her sadly and shook his head. She's never believe in you, never in a month of Sundays. I think she would. Never, the BFG said. It sounded such a wonky tall story. Sorry, dogs. It is sounding... More dogs. Go on. Go and get them. They heard the flesh lump eater. It's sounding such a wonky tall story. The Queen will be laughing and saying, "What awful rub squash." She would not. Of course she would. I told you before that human beings is simply not believing in giants. And it's up to us to find a way of making her believe in them. And how is you getting in to see the Queen anyway? The BFG asked. Now hold on a sec. Just you hold on a sec. I've got another idea. Your idea is full of crodswoggle, BFG said. Not this one, Sophie said. You say that if we tell the Queen, she'd never believe us. I'm certain she wouldn't, BFG said. But we aren't going to tell her, Sophie said excitedly. We don't have to tell her. We'll make her dream it. That is an even more frost-bungling suggestion. Dreams is lots of fun, but nobody's believing in dreams either. You was only believing in a dream while you was actually dreaming it. But as soon as you was waking up, you was saying, "Oh, thank goodness it was only a dream." Don't you worry about that part of it, Sophie said. I can fix that. Never can you fix it, the BFG said. I can. I swear I can. But first of all, let me ask you a very important question. Here it is. Can you make a person dream absolutely anything in the world? Anything you like, the BFG said proudly. If I said I wanted to dream that I was flying in a bathtub with silver wings, could you make me dream it? I could. Well, but how? You obviously don't have exactly that dream in your collection. I do not, the BFG said, but I could soon be mixing it up. Well, how could you be mixing it up? It's a bit like mixing a cake. If you was putting the right amounts of all the different things into it, you is making the cake come out any way you want. Sugary, spongy, curranty, Christmassy, or grob switchy. It's the same with dreams. Go on, Sophie said. I has dillions of dreams on my shelves. Left or right? Right, Sophie said. I has dreams about bathtubs, lots of them. I has dreams about silver wings. I has dreams about flying. So all I have to do is mix those dreams together in the proper way, and I was very quickly making a dream where you is flying in a bathtub with silver wings. I see what you mean, but I didn't know you could mix one dream with another. Dreams like getting mixed, the BFG answered. They's getting very lonesome all by themselves in those glassy bottles. Right, Sophie said. Now then, do you have dreams about the Queen of England? Oh, lots of them. And about giants? Of course. And about giants eating people? Oh, swiggles of them. And about little girls like me? That is the most commonest of all. I has bottles and bottles of dreams about little girls. And you can mix them all up, just as I want you to, Sophie asked, getting more and more excited. Of course, but how is this helping us? I think you is barking up the wrong dog. Now hold on, listen carefully. I want you to mix a dream which you will blow into the Queen of England's bedroom when she is asleep, and this is how it will go. Now hang on a minute, the BFG said. How is I possibly going to get near enough to the Queen of England's bedroom to blow in my dream? You is talking dumb silly. Well, I'll tell you that later. For the moment, please listen carefully. Here's the dream I want you to mix. Are you paying attention? Very close, the BFG said. I want the Queen to dream that 9 disgusting giants, each one about 50 feet tall, are galloping to England in the night. She must dream their names as well. What are their names again? Well, Fleshlamp Peter, Manhugger, Bone Cruncher, Child Chewer, Meat Dripper, Gizzard Gulper, Maid Masher, Blood Bottler. Oh, and the Butcher Boy. Let her dream all those names, and let her dream that they'll be creeping into England in the depths of the witching hour and snatching little boys and girls from their beds. Let her dream that they'll be reaching into the bedroom windows and pulling the little boys and girls out of their beds, and then... Sophie paused. Do they eat them on the spot, or do they carry them away first? Oh, they're usually just popping them straight into their mouths like popcorn. We'll put that in the dream. And then the dream must say that when their tummies are full, they will go galloping back to giant country where no one can find them. Is that all? Well, certainly not. You must then explain to the Queen in her dream that there is a big friendly giant who can tell her where all those beasts are living, so that she can send her soldiers and her armies to capture them once and for all. And now let her dream one last and very important thing. Let her dream that there is a little girl called Sophie sitting on her windowsill who will tell her where the big friendly giant is hiding. Where is he hiding? Asked the BFG. We'll come to that later, Sophie said. So, the Queen dreams her dream, right? Right, the BFG said. Then she wakes up, and the first thing she thinks is, oh, what a horrible dream. I'm so glad it was only a dream. And then she looks up from her pillow, and what does she see? What does she see? Well, she sees a little girl called Sophie sitting on her windowsill right there in real life before her very eyes. How is you going to be sitting on the Queen's windowsill, may I beg? You are going to put me there, Sophie said, and that's the lovely part of it. If someone dreams that there is a little girl sitting on her windowsill, and then she wakes up and sees that the little girl really is sitting there, that's a dream come true, is it not? I was beginning to see where you was driving to. If the Queen is knowing that part of her dream is true, then perhaps she's believing the rest of it is true as well. That's about it. But I shall have to convince her of that myself. You said you was wanting the dream to say there is a big friendly giant who's also going to talk to the Queen. Absolutely. You must. You are the only one who can tell her where to find the other giants. How is I meeting the Queen? I is not wanting to be shooted at by her soldiers. The soldiers are only in the front of the palace. At the back, there's a huge garden and there's no soldiers at all. There is a very high wall with spikes on it around the garden to stop people climbing in. But you can simply walk over that. How is you knowing all about this, about Queen's Palace? Last year I was in a different orphanage. It was in London, and we used to go for walks all around there. Is you helping me to find this palace? I has never dared to go hide and sneaking around London in my life. I'll show you the way, Sophie said confidently. I was frightened of London. Well, don't be. It's full of tiny dark streets, and there are very few people about in the witching hour. The BFG picked Sophie up between one finger and a thumb, placed her gently on the palm of the other hand. Is the Queen's palace very big? He asked. Huge, Sophie said. Then how is we finding the right bedroom? Well, that's up to you. You're supposed to be an expert at that sort of thing. And you is absolutely sure the Queen will not put me in a zoo with the caterpillars? Of course she won't. You'll be a hero, and you'll never have to eat snozcumbers again. Sophie saw the BFG's eyes widen. He licked his lips. You mean it, he said. No more digustive snozcumbers. You couldn't get one if you wanted to. Humans don't grow them. That did it. The BFG got to his feet. When is you wanting me to mix this special dream? He asked. Now. At once. When is we going to see the Queen? He said. Tonight. As soon as you've mixed the dream. Tonight? Why such a flush bunk in her flurry? If we can't save tonight's children, we can anyway save tomorrow's. And what's more, I'm getting famished. I haven't had a thing to eat for 24 hours. Right, then we'd better get crackling, BFG said, moving back towards the cave. Sophie kissed him on the tip of his thumb. I knew you'd do it, she said. Come on, let's hurry. Will the Queen listen? Next chapter's called Mixing the Dream.